Welcome to Soul Wellness with Kristen, where we get into the nitty-gritty of various holistic modalities and explore exactly how they help you heal. I'm your host, Kristen, and I invite you to join me on this enlightening expedition where we explore the connection between mind, body, and spirit. In each episode, we'll talk in depth with holistic providers, medical professionals, therapists, and healers. Our goal is to empower you with knowledge, inspire you with stories of resilience, and provide practical tools that you can integrate into your daily life. So, find a comfortable space and join us as we explore the multifaceted world of holistic wellness. Get ready to learn how to improve every aspect of your life and simply feel good. The adventure begins now. Thank you for joining us. Today, I have Brennyn Molloy with me, and she is with the House of Compassionate Gratitude. Brennyn is an intuitive medium, and she also has a fellowship gathering here at Soul Wellness a couple of times a month. So welcome, Brennyn.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I am so happy to have you. This is going to be fun because I can't wait to learn more about you. Yeah. First off, tell us about this fellowship meeting that you have at Soul Wellness.
So we call it Soul Communion, and I actually started it right after I moved here in 2021 as a way to meet other like-minded people. The name meaning your soul, of course, right? And then communion with one another and all that is and everything and God and all of that. So we started and we went for about 6 months, and then the location was going through some changes and it was summertime, and I said, pause. And then, I don't know, maybe about it's been almost a year here now, a year ago, someone said to me, hey, would you consider doing some sort of service at Soul Wellness? And I said, oh, I don't know, maybe. And then someone else actually asked me the same question. And I went to John, my business partner, and I said, people have asked to bring back Soul Communion, and I don't know how I'm feeling about it. What do you think? And he says, yeah, we should do that. And I said, wait, we? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I mean, unless you don't want me to, I think that's something I want to participate in too. And I said, oh, okay, well then, yeah, let's move forward and let's give that a try and see what happens. But really the principle is people coming together, like-minded humans, or like-hearted humans, even if we don't have like minds, because that's not always the same thing, right? But we gather, we have good conversations around what it means to be human, what it means to have a soul, how to navigate this thing we call life. John and I usually pre-plan a topic for the week, and we start with some bullet points and some ideas and concepts, and then the floor is open and everyone has a really good discussion, and then we have other bullet points and things to tie it all together and wrap it all up. So it has become a very inspiring but also progressive kind of conversation where it helps us all move forward. It's not just a sermon, take this home and digest it. It's about planting a seed and having the conversation and really knowing what's going on with each other and being a supportive community.
I love it. You're almost helping people kind of evolve in this lifetime. This is non-denominational, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
So anybody can come.
Anybody can come, any background, any present, it doesn't matter. We have folks that come who have more Christian backgrounds. We have people who come who are like, I don't know what my background is. People who don't like what their background is. And it's really about creating a safe place to express all of that.
Oh, beautiful. So tell me about your background. How were you raised? Were you raised in a religious household? How did you get in these shoes?
So I joke and say that my parents were two black sheep. They were both raised Catholic and decided that wasn't for them. So my brother and I were christened at a church in Vermont where we lived, and that was about the end of it when it comes to that part of my background. When I was, 6 years old, something like that, my father was introduced to the Lakota people and that faith. And I don't know another word for it, so I just call it spiritually adopted. But basically, he started going to sweat lodges and sun dances, and we would spend a month on the reservation in the summer, living in a tent usually. And that was the majority of what I would call my faith-based exposure as a child. Was between roughly 87 and 93 when he passed, and it was every other weekend when he had us all week, but also every other weekend. So we would be at home and we watching our cartoons, and he's literally creating his pipe. Like he's sitting there and sanding pipestone on the couch. So that was our faith at that point. So in that experience, and why it was so pivotal to me is not because I claim to be Lakota, and I certainly don't still go and follow those practices at this point in my life. I guess I would be interested if somebody invited me. But it was more this idea that anyone can talk to spirit, anyone can talk to creator. Creator can and does talk to all of us. There was never a separation. And since from my understanding, I was born intuitive. I had experiences when I was little that were remembered by others as being highly intuitive. And how did that happen? No one ever told me it was wrong. So I just grew up with it.
I love it. You weren't suppressed. I feel like we all have the ability. It's just, it's kind of programmed out of you very young.
It can be. It's in some places it's flat out like shut down. I have some very good friends who are like, no, thank you. That, you know, their parents were like, you can't do that. That's wrong. It's bad. It's scary. Whatever. And I feel very blessed that I didn't have that experience. I've also seen it just be in society. When my daughter was in middle school, I can remember her saying to me, I don't want to do that right now. I just want to be normal. And I was like, okay. She no longer wants to come and participate in things, and like meditation or whatever. That's fine. Like, fully respect it. And for myself, I had some nightmares basically as a child about my father passing. So when he did pass, it was scary. It made knowing things scary. And I spent a good portion of my childhood being afraid of what I knew. So, I mean, it's interesting now because I meet people from that place where they say, I think I'm kind of intuitive, but all I ever get is the bad stuff. And my advice is dig into that. Open up to knowing the good stuff too. Because as human beings, we're hardwired in this body to keep ourselves safe. So if spirit really wants to talk to you, you're going to feel the scary, unsafe stuff because it's protection. It's like instinct at that point. Instinct meets intuition. Whereas if it's the good stuff and you're like, oh, I feel really lovely today. I feel like it's going to be a good day. We just call that being a good mood, right? Like, we don't acknowledge that always as part of the intuition of, oh, maybe I should, apply for this job. If we don't acknowledge it as intuition, we're not really engaging it. We don't understand that that's what it is. It's the same thing as when you feel like, maybe I should take this other road, and you avoid something. Yeah. So
I think it's important. Your perception is everything, and it's important to look at everything as an opportunity. The people in your life are there for a reason. Sometimes it's to teach you something. Sometimes it's something your soul had in mind for you.
That's right.
I do believe that there are things that we've probably contracted before we got here to experience, and
absolutely
there are people that are playing the other part to help us evolve and learn. And sometimes that's hard when you're in those moments of despair and you're hurting to understand that. But if you can keep the perception that everything is happening for me instead of to me, it certainly can help.
There was an interesting perspective. Years ago now, my daughter and I were visiting with some new friends in Vermont, and it was one of those conversations where everybody forgot who was what age, and it just felt like this moment out of time, and we were all talking about karma and fate and soul path, and it was really beautiful. And we left, we got in the car, and I was continuing debrief with I think she was 13 at the time, 12 or 13, and debrief from this very deep conversation she just participated in. She didn't just hear it, she was conversing. And at some point I said, the only thing I don't understand about my own karma at this point is I was with your father because obviously you're a lovely human and I'm glad you're here, but I wonder why it was so long. Why was it so long that I was in that situation? Not a great one. And I remember she still had her little flip phone and she was playing games on it, and she puts it in her lap and she looks at me almost disgusted, and she said, do you think you're being punished? And I was like, well, and I got teary, and I'm driving and I didn't even really know where I was, following the map, and I was like, well, I mean, something that was kind of bad for me, and I don't understand it. And she says, Mom, you're ridiculous. She's like, you were up there in that heaven room you talk about, and everybody's deciding what they're going to do in life. And some guy says, I need somebody to come in and be my wife through this tough experience. And you said, well, I've got some time to kill. I guess I'll do that. And I'm looking at her. I couldn't even speak. And she says, you always take on more than you really should. You always think you can do things that might not be good for you for other people. She's like, why would that be different? I'm like, you think, now words come, and I said, you think I was just volunteering for his thing? And she's like, well, yeah, of course. She says, Mom, whatever you came here to do, you haven't done yet.
Wow.
And then it was the channel closed, and she picked up her phone and she resumes her little game. And I was like losing my mind because it was this, we learn about karma like it's tough and I won't use the word on your podcast, right? But we all know what karma can be. But we miss this other piece of the exchange. It's good stuff too to start with. But also, if we are advanced souls in that sense, we are mature souls, why wouldn't we help each other out? Why wouldn't we say, okay, you've got a tough experience, but I know what compassion is. Like at the soul level, I know compassion, I know forgiveness, I can handle this.
Yeah.
Think about the big scary things in human history. Do we think that it was all accidental? There's just souls that come here to be victims and souls that come here to be perpetrators? Because there's karma to both.
Right.
If you come in here and you were the perpetrator of something really, really miserable, there's karma to that, and you signed up for it. Mm-hmm. And if you were the victim to it, there's something karmic there to that too, and you signed up for it. I tell my clients all the time, we are the bad guy in somebody's story. And by the time you come work with me one-on-one, you have definitely had lifetimes where you were not a victim. Mm-hmm. Because it's balance.
Do you ever come across somebody that doesn't believe in past lives?
In my social life, yeah, sometimes. Like who you meet like at a Christmas party or whatever, sure. But as far as clients go at this point, most of them do. Yeah, I would say most of them do. And it's surprising, honestly. I didn't know so many people had that understanding.
Yeah. Because it's for me, it's hard to wrap my head around how someone couldn't understand that you're doing this many times.
Yeah.
This isn't just a one and done.
Well, I think it's because there's a lot of human history where we've had, I'm trying to think of the right words without like sounding like, I'm not trying to like judge anybody's faith practice or what have you, but there is a large part of the population who has very specific faith practices that talk about a beginning and an end, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And that's just what it is. And it's rigid to me. It's rigid thinking. I think people might also sometimes get caught up in, I guess, kind of like my weird conversation with my daughter. If you're here having a tough time, are you afraid of something? Are you afraid it was punishment? So you don't want to acknowledge what might have been before. Mm-hmm. But I also think it's because, I think it was Einstein who talked about time being relative only to humans. We look at it like a line on a page. And if we take that out of it, it's all happening at the same time. So it doesn't really matter so much.
I know. And that's so hard to wrap your head around, because we do see a beginning. We see our birth and we do see an end. We see our death and we see this space in between. But yeah,
Come to a mediumship group though. Right? Come to a mediumship group where great grandma comes through and there's a conversation about that grandma's soul is also reincarnate in somebody's grandbaby. How is she in two places at once? Mm-hmm. Because time is relative and our soul is so big. It's not limited to, just inside our chest or our head or whatever.
So you do intuitive and mediumship sessions as well?
Yes.
And people can find you how?
My website is called theprocessofbeing.org.
Okay.
I'm also on lots of different social medias, but you can find the links to those there.
And you do this in person or you do it virtual?
Mostly virtual at this point, but I also work in person.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And tell me about that. When did you start doing it? How did you know that this is something that you could do and could do it for the public?
Well, I was playing with, they actually weren't tarot cards. My first deck of tarot cards, my mother freaked out about for a little while and burned them. And then she felt bad.
Thanks, Mom.
I know. But she was having a scary moment in her life. So she was trying to keep me safe. I'll give her the grace there. But anyways, and she did replace them about 6 months later. But it was this deck it looked like regular playing cards. And I think it was something like gypsy fortune telling or whatever.
And you're how old?
I would think I was like 15, 16.
Okay. And
I was always using my book. Like I'd put them out and like my aunts would come over and this and that and we'd talk about whatever was going on. But it was like a family thing. I did it at home and with my cousins and whatever. And then I grew up and got married and had a baby and got a day job. I worked at a bank. I was a bank manager for like a dozen years. And this was just like that thing that sometimes happened on Saturday when so-and-so would come over. I did have an altar in my home. I was still spiritual at home and all that. I just didn't see how it played out as a career, if you will. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I got divorced and long story, I ended up not being in banking anymore because I asked for some help and I fell down the stairs. So I was out of work and I moved to Virginia Beach, and people like an uncle and fate ended up having me turning around in the ARE's parking lot. And I went in one day, like, finally, I'll go in here because people keep telling me to. I was feeling defiant. And I went in, and there was a flyer for a psychic fair. And I thought, I'm a single mom on workman's comp right now. I think I could use the money. So if nothing else, I'm going to try out for this fair, make a couple $100 on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Why not, right? And I was so nervous, but I went and they test you, like you sit down in a room with 3 other people and you do a reading for them. And they wanted my bio, and they asked, why didn't you put mediumship in there? Like, you connected with 2 different family members for 3 different people here. You didn't put mediumship on this. And I said, it's too much responsibility. I don't want to do that professionally. And by the end of that was like, I don't know, October probably. So by December, it was really clear that I could not avoid the mediumship. They were just going to keep coming. They were just going to keep showing up. When I do intuitive mediumship, it's both. We can focus on your life and what's happening in your life, or how to navigate options and whatever. And I'm claircognizant, so I don't really need the cards, but I know people like the cards, so we'll play with cards while we do it. And you leave the door open. So if somebody's grandma or best friend wants to come through, then they can. People can also book with me and say, okay, I want to connect with so-and-so.
Okay.
Like this person I miss, and I want to connect with them. I don't summon anybody. I think the notion is kind of rude. I'm not going to guarantee and promise to bring so-and-so through for you. But if they're comfortable and it's the right time and it all works out, then that's what we do.
Very nice. And so there's no pressure. It's
No.
kind of like, if they want to come through, they'll come through.
Right. Absolutely. And there's so many things that can influence why. I get that question, like, why would this one come and that one not? And I personally believe it's what they need and what you need in the moment, what's truly needed here. But there's also things that block it. Their soul has things they're doing, right? Like, especially if they just passed, sometimes it wouldn't be comfortable. Sometimes what they would have to bring through might not be right for you to hear right now. So I think those things can lead to, I'm just going to call it a block because I don't have another word for it right now, but it feels like that. But it just means like missed connection, not right now.
Yeah.
And I also do group mediumship events and things like that. And we have one coming up here in January in Lake Norman. But in those kind of settings, I've noticed that sometimes people won't come through in the group because it's like, this is private. Like, I'm going to talk to you one-on-one. I don't want another 30 people hearing our family story about where the will is or whatever.
This is like a big mediumship group where you're going to have a group of people and then kind of talk to the crowd sort of thing.
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
very nice.
And that usually starts with evidentiary mediumship. So it'll be like, I'm getting this feeling, and then this is happening, or I'm seeing this. And sometimes it feels like I'm playing charades, but the audience member will say, that feels like so-and-so. That makes sense to me. And that kind of like forms our tether and our connection. And then we can have more of a conversation about what that message is.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's really cool. It's very cool. It was another one of those things I didn't understand when I started it. Everybody's like, oh, do this. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And I'll just say yes and do that. But I didn't understand the impact it was having. And I prayed about it. I was like, I want to understand why am I called to do this? What's the purpose? And I was in Vermont, and there was this young woman, and she was there with, I think it was like an aunt or like a bonus mom or what have you, but she was real quiet, and her grandma eventually came through, and she identified her, like she helped us form the tether, she acknowledged her, but then she just sat quiet and got kind of teary with the message that was coming. So I knew it was right for her, but she didn't give really any thoughts on it or what have you. And I got an email, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 days later from her. And it was not like a little tiny thank you. It was like a paragraph explaining that her grandmother had raised her because her mother had a lot of challenges in life. And the grandma was really tough on her. And she always felt like her grandma was tough on her because she resented having to raise her. And really her grandma was tough on her because she didn't want to make the same mistakes she had with her mother.
Yeah.
And that girl's closure, it was like, oh, that's why we're doing it. Like, that's why we're doing this.
Super healing for people.
I don't remember the name of the university, but there was a university in Texas recently that put out a study discussing mediumship as being an integral part of grief healing.
I 100% believe that.
I love that a university put it out. Like, I mean, I know it, so I think it's great if it's getting acknowledged there.
I do too. That's huge. It's nice that we have access to people like you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You know, that people if they are hurting, they can reach out and they can get some closure and feel that.
I think it brings a lot of peace. One of the things I've learned that I do differently that it makes sense to me is I tell people when they come to me, your loved ones typically will come to me as you knew them or as they knew their self when they were alive. So they're describing themselves from the self perspective. So for instance, I had this one man and he kept talking about how funny he was. And this mother and daughter were there and they're like, well, we think you're talking about Uncle so-and-so, but we didn't think he was funny. And I was like, well, he thinks he's hilarious.
Right.
And they were like, well, we think he was something else. And it was like, yep, because it's his perspective. And I've been questioned about this before because other mediums do it differently. And you get the big soul version, the big benevolent, I love you and I miss you and I'm so sorry and all those warm things. And I think those messages have a beautiful place. And I think they're so comforting, right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you're somebody who had a really challenging relationship and you need to work that out, the karma of why you came in with a really challenging relationship with your sister or your mother-in-law or whatever that is, they need to meet you where you are. They need to meet you as a human so they and you can clear up whatever that karma was that seems to have had a disconnection. So the warm, lovey, benevolent thing, like, I think that's great when it has its place, but if somebody who made your life miserable came through like that, you probably wouldn't believe me that that's who it was.
Right.
So I've learned that it's, when you work with a medium, it's important to understand what their method is and what the goals are of your client so you can make sure you meet in the right place.
Now, when you're meeting with someone, do you have to prepare yourself beforehand? Do you have to do some sort of meditation to get in that state to start channeling, or does it just start happening?
I want to tell you that I meditate for 35 minutes and listen to sound healing and sage myself from head to toe. But I don't. I used to put a braid in my hair and it was connecting the generations and it was very symbolic for me. And sometimes when I do fairs, I still do because it kind of helps put you like a little, like the bubble around you when you're at a fair. But when it's just me and you know, give me a glass of water and, 5 minutes to forget that I had to pay my light bill today. Yeah. And that's it. It just starts coming. Yeah.
Oh, that is wonderful.
Yeah. I don't want to be a hypocrite about it because I know meditation's important and, in coaching and all of that, you need to meditate, you need your downtime, you need self-care and all of that is really true. But if you meditate 3 times a week, it's just like going to the gym, right? If you go to the gym 3 times a week, you know how to use the squat bench, right? Because you do it. You don't have to do it 7 days a week. 3 days a week, you have muscle memory, you know what you're doing. And for me, meditation's the same way. Okay. Because when do you really need it? When do you really need prayer or meditation? It's when it hits the fan.
Right.
And you are going to find a way to have that connection when it hits the fan. It's a lot easier if you've been doing it 3 times a week and you know the channel, you know the door. Yeah. But yeah, I don't personally any longer meditate or journal every day of the week. And if it goes more than a week, I know I need to. It's like I need a connection if it goes too long. But
you mentioned coaching, so that's something else that you do. Tell me about that.
So if you do life coaching with me, it's definitely goal-oriented. It's definitely accountability-oriented, but it's also looking at your connections. It also accounts for karma, past lives if you operate from that system. If you don't operate from a past life system, that's okay. We can find other words for it. Actually, yeah, I just finished up with a client who did not do past lives, and it did not impact our coaching at all, now that I think about that. But in any case, so it's identifying what's going on with you now. Where do you intuitively feel you're going? Where do you want to be going in life? And if you are feeling, quote unquote, stuck, what from the past is impacting that you need to be learning from, like karmic lesson that you need to learn from in order to move forward. You don't have to book intuitive or mediumship separately if you're doing coaching with me unless you want to. We incorporate all that stuff. Nice. Any of the energy work, it can be incorporated. It's just about what's needed today.
Nice. And you are going to be at our upcoming expo, which is December 14th.
It is.
So anybody listening to this, you're going to be in our large classroom at a table. You're going to be out in the open. People can walk right by and schedule an intuitive mediumship or energy work session with you right there. So
they can schedule with me there. The day of the fair, I'll be doing intuitive sessions. If they want to schedule energy or healing work, I'll bring the things, and I think we're going to read the vibe a little bit to see if it's really super busy, and we'll schedule it if we need to, or we'll do it then. And we're also going to have our workbooks with us, or you can order them. And we have a new, I'm going to call it a new product. Product is a weird word for this world of what we do, but it's a healing oil that we're rolling out for the holiday season. So
Okay.
we're going to have that available too.
And then what's the next date that you are here at Soul Wellness doing your soul communion?
The 1st of December.
Oh, that is a Sunday. Yep. That's this
And
weekend.
the 15th.
Okay.
So if you come to the expo the next morning, I will be back, or we'll be back. John
And
should be
you
with
do
me.
that at 10 a.m., correct? And it's in our classroom in the back hall. Wonderful. Tell us again how to find you.
The easiest way to find me is theprocessofbeing.org.
Okay. And
The
that's
.com is someone else's, so that's not me.
.org, everybody. So that's where they can find intuitive sessions, mediumship, coaching, and everything.
All of it. Yep.
Fantastic.
That's it.
Well, this was fun.
Thank you.
I learned from you. I like it.
Oh, good. Me too. I enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. I love when I learn from people that are here and using the center. It's just amazing.
Well,
All of
thank-
you guys just amaze me.
I think it's great that it's here. Thank you for building it,
Yeah,
creating it.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thanks so much. I'm sure we will do this again one day.
I hope so.
Thank you for joining us on another enriching episode of Soul Wellness with Kristen. We hope the insights shared today have resonated with you, inspiring a deeper connection to your own journey towards holistic well-being. If you enjoyed today's episode, we invite you to subscribe, share, and reach out. Your feedback fuels our mission to bring you meaningful content that educates, empowers, and uplifts. Remember, you are a vital part of this community, and together we're creating a ripple effect of positive change.